So how do we make the regular bind off less tight, more elastic and more beautiful? We start by working the first 2 stitches, and that means knitting the knits and purling the purls. In 1-by-1 ribbing, I would knit the first stitch and purl the next one. The next steps depend on the type of the stitch that is now the first stitch from the tip of the left needle. If it is a knit, as is the case over here, we bring the yarn to the back of the work, and then we insert the tip of the left needle from left to right into the second stitch from the tip of the right needle and pass the stitch over the first one, just as we do when we use the regular bind-off method. But we don't let the stitch go off the left needle yet. This is the trick that makes all the difference. We keep the stitch on the left needle for now. And as it is still sitting there, we continue to work on the next stitch, next to this kind of suspended stitch. So we insert the tip of the right needle into that stitch from left to right, just as we normally do when we knit a stitch, then wrap the needle with the yarn and pull the wrap through, knitting the second stitch that is next to the suspended one. And then we let go of both stitches. We slip them off the left needle like this. If the next stitch is a purl, which is the case over here, we bring the yarn to the front of the work, and then we pass the second stitch from the tip of the right needle over the first one, but again we keep the stitch on the left needle, and while it's still sitting there, we purl the next stitch. So we insert the tip of the right needle from right to left into the stitch, and we do it in such a way that the right needle stays on top of the suspended stitch but in front of the working yarn. And then we wrap the needle with the yarn and pull the wrap through, purling the stitch. It could be very unusual because we are purling the stitch from between 2 stitches. So it might seem awkward, but it is not difficult at all. And once we purl the stitch, we can slip these 2 guys off the left needle. And then we repeat these steps. So if the next stitch is a knit, yarn at the back, pass one over the other, keep the stitch on the needle, knit the next one, slip both stitches off. The next stitch is a purl, yarn to the front, pass one over the other, keep the suspended stitch right there while you purl the next stitch and slip these both stitches off the needle. And keep going until you have just 2 stitches left on your right needle. And this is my last purl, and I slip the stitches off the left needle. My left needle is empty. So there are just 2 stitches on the right needle, and we have a nice bind off edge over here. So what do we do now to finish off the bind off? We do exactly the same thing as we do when we use the regular bind off method. So we pass one stitch over the other, letting go of it, and then we cut the yarn, pull the yarn through the last stitch and pull tight to secure. Because we bound off these stitches in pattern, the chain of stitches is sitting on top of the fabric. But if you don't need to bind off in pattern, you can bind off all stitches as knits, and then the edge will look like this, with the chain of stitches at the front of the fabric. And as you see, the chain of stitches, it looks more prominent than it does in the regular bind-off method. See the difference? And the fabric is not jammed as it is over here, so you can clearly see that it is tight. This one is all relaxed and loose, and it stretches more than the fabric, the edge that was bound off using the regular bind-off method. See the difference? That's how this one stretches, and this is the stretch we get from the regular bind-off. Not so good. So all these benefits make this bind-off method perfect for sock cuffs, necklines, and pretty much any other part of any other project. For more details about this type of bind-off, go to 10roseday.com/suspended-bind-off. Happy knitting, my friend. I'll talk to you in the next tutorial.